She was a Chicago girl with no silver spoon, no Hollywood connections, and no dreams of stardom. Born Marilyn Pauline Novak, the daughter of a factory worker and a schoolteacher, Kim Novak never imagined herself under the spotlight. Her heart was set on painting, not posing. But fate had a different script. A simple modeling job, of all things, for a refrigerator company, would ignite a chain of events that transformed an ordinary girl from the Midwest into one of Hollywood's most unforgettable icons. That small modeling job became the turning point of her life. Sent on a promotional tour to Los Angeles, Kim Novak walked into a film studio as just another visitor, but she walked out as Hollywood's next obsession. A Columbia Pictures talent scout spotted her, and with just one screen test, it was clear, the camera didn't just like her, it adored her. Columbia was desperate to rival Marilyn Monroe, and Novak's icy stare and striking curves fit the fantasy. But to them, she wasn't Marilyn Pauline Novak from Chicago anymore. Studio boss Harry Cohn stripped her of her name, her hair color, even her identity, crafting Kim Novak to fit his mold of the perfect star. Yet, Kim refused to surrender completely. She kept her natural eyebrows, rejected plastic surgery, and shielded her true self from Hollywood's claws. That guarded, enigmatic presence only fueled her mystique. And with every early role, no matter how small, she burned herself into the memory of audiences who couldn't look away. In Pushover and PHFFFT, Kim Novak revealed something rare among young actresses of her time: restraint. She didn't oversell, didn't fight to outshine her co-stars. Instead, she let silence and subtlety do the work, and it drew audiences in like a whisper they couldn't ignore. Then came Picnic in 1955, the role that changed everything. As the small-town girl aching for something more, Novak's performance was magnetic. And in that unforgettable riverbank dance with William Holden, she didn't just act, she mesmerized. Overnight, Kim Novak was no longer a rising star, she was a household name. By the end of the decade, she wasn't just Columbia's brightest jewel, she was one of the highest-paid women in Hollywood. She had defied the studio system, broken its rules, and carved her own path, proving that mystery could be far more powerful than noise. Not bad for a girl who once posed beside refrigerators. But with Kim Novak, Hollywood didn't just discover a star, they tried to manufacture one. The moment she signed with Columbia, the makeover began. Studio boss Harry Cohn had a single goal: create his own version of Marilyn Monroe. He bleached her hair to platinum, drilled her with speech lessons to erase her Chicago accent, and stripped away her real name, Marilyn, replacing it with the sharper, more marketable, Kim. But Cohn wasn't finished. He pushed for a nose job, lip enhancements, even reshaped brows. Novak refused every demand. Even as a newcomer with everything to lose, she stood her ground. "They wanted me to be sexy," she once said. "I wanted to be real." That defiance didn't sit well with Cohn, a man infamous for controlling his stars. Yet Novak never bent. Columbia could dress her in tight sweaters, pose her in seductive photo shoots, and sell her as a fantasy, but Kim Novak's quiet resistance told a different story. On screen, her body language whispered authenticity, mystery, and truth, something far more dangerous than the studio's manufactured glamour. She was more guarded, more deliberate, and that restraint became her signature. While Marilyn Monroe teased the camera with playful charm, Kim Novak confronted it with a cool, detached gaze that carried hints of sadness. She didn't seduce audiences, she haunted them. The public couldn't look away. Critics were divided. Some dismissed her as stiff, even wooden. Others called her mesmerizing, hypnotic. But love her or doubt her, the roles kept coming. Hollywood saw box office gold. Novak, however, saw the strings. She hated the machine that tried to control her, often admitting she felt like a puppet on someone else's stage. Yet acting gave her something her modest Chicago upbringing never had: independence, power, and a voice. Her rebellion wasn't loud or flashy. It was subtle, steady, and visible in every role she played: a quiet defiance that made her dangerous in a system built on submission. Kim Novak didn't just endure Hollywood's makeover. She turned it back on itself. And then came her proving ground. 1955, Columbia Pictures gambled big, casting her as Madge Owens in Picnic. It was a role drenched in longing and tension, demanding an actress who could reveal volumes without saying a word. In the wrong hands, it would have been forgettable. In Novak's, it was unforgettable. Novak made it unforgettable. On set, the atmosphere was charged. Her co-star, William Holden, was an experienced actor and a heavy drinker. Their chemistry was genuine, yet complex. Holden allegedly was reluctant to perform the now famous dance scene by the river, feeling it was embarrassing. Novak, however, had a different perspective. She understood that this scene would be pivotal for the film. And it was. Filmed in slow, sultry motion with the tune Moonlight playing in the background, that scene depicted a level of physical intimacy that was uncommon in films of that era. There were no kisses, no dialogue, just pure energy. It conveyed everything without uttering a single word. Off-screen, there was tension between Holden and Novak as well. She was reserved and cautious, while he was flirtatious, older, and married. They never dated, but rumors about them lingered for years. The media described it as simmering, while Columbia referred to it as magic. Upon the film's release, audiences were captivated. Picnic garnered 6 Oscar nominations and solidified Novak's status as a genuine leading lady. She portrayed her character not as a mere sex symbol. Instead, she embodied a girl torn between her desires and societal expectations. Critics labeled her performance as restrained yet impactful. This restraint would become her signature style. Back at the studio, Harry Conn recognized he had discovered something extraordinary, a star who didn't conform to the typical mold. Novak avoided parties and only gave interviews when absolutely necessary. Yet, the more she withdrew, the more her fans yearned to learn about her. Picnic was not merely her breakout role, it was her statement. She was more than just a pretty face, she had the ability to lead a film. And she didn't need to raise her voice to make an impact. Forbidden Romance. What transpired next didn't just raise eyebrows, it ignited a firestorm in Hollywood. In the late 1950s, Kim Novak discreetly began a relationship with singer and entertainer Sammy Davis Jr. It was a risky choice. She was a prominent movie star bound by a contract. He was black, Jewish, and one of the most renowned performers in the nation. Interracial relationships were frowned upon, particularly in the public sphere. However, Novak was unfazed. She viewed Davis as talented, charismatic, and compassionate. They were seen at exclusive gatherings and intimate venues throughout Los Angeles. Studio executives quickly caught wind of it. Harry Conn was furious. He didn't merely threaten her career. Allegedly, he summoned individuals with mob connections to put an end to it. According to reports from those close to Davis, he faced a chilling ultimatum. Terminate the relationship or face potential violence. The pressure proved effective. Davis, heartbroken, withdrew. Novak was crushed but remained silent. She felt powerless against the system. Not yet. At the time, Novak never publicly acknowledged the relationship. Yet, years later, she confessed it had occurred. She remarked that the way it concluded left a lasting impression on her, one she never completely overcame. Why was it such a significant issue? Because Kim Novak was at the pinnacle of her stardom. And Columbia viewed her as a valuable asset to market to mainstream white audiences. They sought to avoid scandal. They craved control. Davis, for his part, kept a low profile but never forgot. Friends noted he spoke of her with affection and sorrow. This was more than just a Hollywood romance. It revealed the stark racism, manipulation, and hypocrisy lurking behind the scenes. Novak possessed wealth and fame, yet lacked freedom. The performance Hitchcock loathed to love. Alfred Hitchcock was not keen on casting Kim Novak for Vertigo. He had another actress in mind, Vera Miles, but she withdrew. Columbia lent Novak to Universal for the role of Meline. Hitchcock was not pleased. He believed she lacked refinement. She found him to be distant and domineering. The atmosphere on set was not amicable. Nevertheless, Novak arrived prepared. She asked questions and challenged decisions. She despised the gray suit Hitchcock insisted she wear. He said it made her look washed out. He explained that it wasn't about what she wanted. It was all about his vision. The outcome? One of the most haunting dual performances in film history. Novak portrayed Meline and Judy, two enigmatic women filled with mystery and desire. She accomplished this with very few words, hardly raising her voice. Her sorrow wasn't loud, it was evident in her eyes and in the silences between her lines. At the time, critics were puzzled. Some labeled her performance as flat, while others claimed she lacked acting skills. Yet, audiences were captivated. Years later, those same critics who had dismissed her began to refer to Vertigo as a masterpiece. Hitchcock never publicly praised her, but privately, he confessed that she surprised him. She had an instinct that caught him off guard, something he couldn't control. The studio wasn't thrilled with the box office results. Vertigo didn't perform well upon its release. It was deemed too strange, too slow, and too psychological. However, as time passed, it evolved into Hitchcock's most scrutinized film and Novak's most iconic role. She hardly smiled in the film. There was no flirting. She simply embodied a wounded, mysterious, unforgettable character. When film historians began to rank the greatest performances in cinema, Novak's name consistently appeared. Not because she played the Hollywood game, but because she quietly shattered expectations. Hitchcock might have disliked her defiance of his rules, but the audience was entranced. Glamour and guts at Cannes. The Cannes Film Festival was the place for stars to shine. But when Kim Novak arrived in the early 60s, she didn't just shine, she exploded onto the scene. She graced the red carpet in a sheer, form-fitting gown that revealed almost everything. The neckline was daringly low. The fabric hugged her figure. Photographers went into a frenzy. The flashes continued for a solid 10 minutes. It wasn't a wardrobe malfunction, it was a deliberate choice. Novak was fully aware of her impact. This was her statement to Hollywood: "You don't control me." The studio pleaded with her to choose something more modest. They wanted discretion, she aimed for headlines, and she certainly achieved that. The French press dubbed her Lades Glace, the ice goddess. American media took it a step further, with one headline proclaiming, "Kim Novak's dress sparks an international incident." The Vatican allegedly criticized her appearance. Some reviewers argued that she was humiliating herself, while her supporters disagreed, seeing strength rather than desperation. Novak never issued an apology. When questioned about it later, she remarked, "I wore it because I liked how I felt in it. That's all there is to it." What many were unaware of was that she was grappling with anxiety behind the scenes. She faced pressure from all sides, studios, fans, and powerful men, but she wore the dress regardless. That moment became one of the most discussed red carpet events of the decade. It also marked a significant shift. Novak was finished being Columbia's compliant poster girl. She started selecting roles for herself or outright rejecting them. The dress's appearance was more than just a fashion statement, it was her act of defiance. It demonstrated that even in an industry designed to control women, Kim Novak could still take charge, at least for one unforgettable evening. She refrained from smiling for the cameras and didn't wave like the others. Instead, she stood there, completely still, as the world gasped, and she never looked back. Hollywood's most costly blunder. After Vertigo, studios believed that reuniting Kim Novak and Jimmy Stewart would guarantee success. Thus, in 1958, they cast them as lovers in Belle, Book, and Candle, a romantic comedy featuring Novak as a seductive witch who falls for a mortal man. On paper, it had all the elements. Two box office stars, an eccentric premise, and eye-catching technicolor. However, off-screen, it was far from enchanting. The film was hastily produced to capitalize on the excitement from Vertigo, but the tone was inconsistent, part comedy, part fantasy, part moody romance. Novak appeared breathtaking in every scene, adorned in sleek black gowns and dramatic lighting. Yet, the script offered her little to work with. Critics were polite, but far from dazzled. A few admired the glossy style, while others complained Novak seemed distant, even mechanical. The truth was harsher, she was drained. The studio had rushed her from Vertigo straight into production, leaving her no choice in the matter. She was running on fumes. Even James Stewart, her co-star, later admitted the pairing didn't work. At 25 years her senior, he confessed the romance was a stretch, and audiences agreed. The real problem was bigger than chemistry. Bell, Book and Candle was supposed to reinvent Kim Novak, showing she was more than just a brooding dramatic lead. Instead, it boxed her in even tighter. Once again, she was cast as the same icy blonde, enigmatic but powerless, a mystery without a voice. Columbia pushed the film hard, but the returns were lukewarm. Not a disaster, but nowhere near the hit they had banked on. For Novak, the disappointment cut deeper. She later admitted she often felt like a prop in those years, and this film was no exception. To Hollywood, she was an image. To herself, she was suffocating. Bell, Book and Candle wasn't just another role, it was a wake-up call. Kim Novak wasn't a plug-and-play fantasy. She was an actress who needed depth, dimension, and the freedom to truly breathe on screen. The studio might have ignored the warning signs, but Kim Novak didn't. Then came the Playboy scandal. In the early 1960s, whispers began to circulate, rumors that Playboy was sitting on a stash of unseen photographs of Novak. They weren't Hollywood studio shots. These were from her early modeling days, taken long before she became a household name. Not explicit, but risque enough to ignite a scandal in an era obsessed with morality clauses. For Hugh Hefner, the photos were gold. Novak's carefully crafted image was one of mystery and untouchable allure. To put her on the cover could sell 1 million magazines overnight. But for Columbia, it was a nightmare waiting to explode. Novak's contract was airtight. If those photos ever went public, her career could collapse under the weight of scandal, or worse, a lawsuit. When Novak discovered the rumors, she was furious. Her lawyers pounced immediately, threatening legal action against anyone who dared move forward. Hefner backed down publicly, but the damage was done. The whispers never really faded. For years, fans speculated whether the photos even existed, adding yet another layer to the enigma that was Kim Novak. Playboy insiders later admitted the photos did exist. But they never saw daylight. What stung even more than the rumor was the double standard. Male stars could survive scandals, affairs, even arrests, and still be welcomed back as heroes. For Kim Novak, a single compromising photo could have ended everything. She never posed for anything revealing during her Hollywood career. She didn't need to. Yet the press was relentless. Tabloids splashed old swimsuit shots, twisting them into something more, trying to strip away the dignity she guarded so fiercely. Novak stayed silent for years. Later, she confessed the ordeal haunted her, not because she was ashamed, but because it exposed the ugly truth of Hollywood's double standard. It didn't end her career, but it gave her another reason to distance herself from the machine. She didn't want to be reduced to a contract, a body, or a scandal headline. She wanted to be seen as more. And in that battle, she quietly won. By the 1970s, Novak was done. No staged farewell tour, no glossy photo spreads, no press conference. She simply walked away. She retreated first to Big Sur, then to a quiet life in rural Oregon with her husband, veterinarian Robert Malloy. Hollywood didn't know what to make of her disappearance, so the tabloids filled the silence with rumors, a breakdown, secret surgeries, rehab, blacklists, even disfigurement. But Novak wasn't hiding. She was healing. For the first time since her teenage years, she could breathe. She painted, rode horses, and lived on her own land, far from flashing cameras. Fame had always felt suffocating. Now, she was free. Still, the press never truly let her go. Any rare public appearance, even at charity events, sparked a frenzy. But the headlines weren't about her art, her films, or her legacy. They were about her face, her age, her body. Novak once summed it up perfectly: they always wanted the image. I wanted to be a person. And so, she chose peace over applause. She never chased a comeback. When she worked, it was on her own terms, like her 1991 TV movie with Ben Kingsley. The Hollywood Machine. She had left it behind. Her withdrawal wasn't weakness. It was strength. She reclaimed her narrative not by fighting louder, but by walking away, and never needing to return. Then, in 2014, she surprised the world. After decades of near silence, Kim Novak stepped back onto Hollywood's biggest stage, the Academy Awards. At 81, she appeared radiant in a soft peach gown, her presence graceful and dignified. But instead of celebrating the return of one of Hitchcock's greatest leading ladies, social media exploded with cruelty. Not about her talent. Not about her legacy. But about her face. Within minutes, plastic surgery rumors and mocking tweets flooded the internet, overshadowing the moment entirely. Novak didn't flinch. She stood tall, delivered her lines with grace, and walked off the stage with the same quiet dignity that had defined her career. What most people didn't realize was that Kim Novak had already survived battles far tougher than social media cruelty. She had fought cancer, undergone treatments that left her with lasting facial nerve damage, and, like so many women in Hollywood, experimented with cosmetic procedures she would later admit she regretted. Days after the Oscars, she broke her silence with a heartfelt Facebook post. I wanted to look nice for the Oscars. I wasn't prepared for the cruelty. There were no excuses, no denial. Novak owned her choices, admitting her vulnerabilities and fears with honesty that Hollywood rarely sees. Her words sparked something unexpected. The laughter and mockery turned into a broader conversation. Celebrities like Rose McGowan, and countless fans across the world, rose to her defense. They asked why aging women in Hollywood were treated as spectacles, ridiculed for simply daring to exist in plain sight. Novak never begged for sympathy. Instead, by standing there unapologetically, older, flawed, human, she started a movement. This was the same woman who had once refused to let a studio change her nose, who had walked away from stardom on her own terms, now returning for a fleeting moment to confront an industry that had barely evolved. But this time, she didn't need the spotlight. She was the spotlight. And in that moment, the world finally understood what it meant when Kim Novak refused to blink. As audiences were reminded of Novak's resilience, another star was also making her mark in a very different way. The world had fallen in love with Donna Douglas as the lovable, wholesome Ellie Mae Clampett on the Beverly Hillbillies. But behind that famous role was a woman with far more to offer. Donna's charm wasn't just about beauty or on-screen innocence, it was her warmth, her entrepreneurial spirit, her ability to make everyone feel seen. Men admired her, women related to her, and together they adored her for reasons that reached far beyond her famous smile. Donna Douglas wasn't just a television sweetheart, she was a cultural icon, unforgettable because she embodied both grace and grit in equal measure. She was the girl next door. Donna Douglas exuded a vibe that was simply irresistible. Her charm made her feel like the quintessential girl next door. And by that, I mean she never pretended to be anything other than herself. She was authentically real. This genuine nature made her incredibly likable. No false airs, no pretenses, just pure, heartfelt goodness. Consider her portrayal of Ellie Mae Clampett in the Beverly Hillbillies. Ellie Mae represented that down-to-earth charm perfectly. She had no desire to be fancy or glamorous. Instead, she was a fun, sweet character who remained true to herself. Whether she was chasing after animals or helping her family navigate their newfound wealth, Ellie Mae was simply doing her own thing. It was this innate warmth that endeared her to people. You didn't have to be someone extravagant to capture hearts. Donna demonstrated that being yourself was enough to be cherished. What's remarkable about Donna's charm is that it felt effortless. It never seemed like she was putting on a performance. Ellie Mae was the kind of person you could envision hanging out with, someone you'd want as a friend. There was an authenticity about Donna that made her incredibly approachable. You didn't need to impress anyone to be loved. Just being kind, genuine, and real was sufficient. It's the kind of charm that's easy to connect with, especially in an industry where many stars are focused on maintaining a flawless, polished image. Donna wasn't striving for perfection. She simply was who she was, and that was incredibly refreshing. She made you feel like you could be her friend without the need for glam and glitter. There was no need for her to be someone unrelatable. She was just herself, and that's what made her truly special. She had a unique way of making you feel like you truly belonged, as if she were the type of person you could sit down with for a heartfelt conversation. And let's face it, who wouldn't want that in a friend or a celebrity? Donna possessed a natural talent for putting people at ease, making it seem like she was one of us. She wasn't attempting to be a larger-than-life star, she simply allowed her genuine kindness to shine through. Honestly, that's quite a rare quality in Hollywood. It's the sort of charm that inspires admiration, not because someone is flawless, but because they are refreshingly authentic. Her girl-next-door persona wasn't merely a trait, it was her essence. That authenticity set her apart during a time when many stars were enveloped in an untouchable aura. Donna was the kind of person who didn't need to be larger than life to be cherished. She demonstrated that kindness, relatability, and simply being yourself could leave a lasting impression. That's why both men and women found it impossible not to adore her. She never overexerted herself, she just allowed her true self to shine. In a world brimming with glitz and glamour, Donna Douglas was a refreshing breath of air. Her infectious energy. Donna Douglas exuded an energy that was simply contagious. You know, the type of person who enters a room and instantly elevates the atmosphere. That was her. Even while portraying Ellie Mae on the Beverly Hillbillies, she didn't just act the role, she embodied it. Her character was vibrant, always infusing a burst of joy and excitement. Honestly, you couldn't help but feel uplifted when you saw her on screen. Her energy wasn't merely about being loud or extravagant, it was a warm, natural enthusiasm that made you smile every time she appeared. The atmosphere she created made her character incredibly lovable and approachable. Ellie Mae was more than just a charming, sweet country girl, she represented pure fun. Always eager and prepared for whatever challenges arose, her positive outlook was contagious. It wasn't only Ellie Mae who showcased Donna's vibrant energy, in reality, she was recognized for her bubbly personality and zest for life. She had a unique ability to brighten any room simply by being present. Whether engaging with fans, attending events, or mingling with her co-stars, her energetic aura was palpable. It came naturally to her, not something she had to force. She possessed an innate talent for uplifting those around her, which endeared her to both men and women alike. Who wouldn't want to be in the company of someone who could transform any moment into a fun and thrilling experience? Donna's energy wasn't about being the loudest or most theatrical, it was a vibe that made people feel joyful just by being close to her. This kind of positivity and enthusiasm is what makes individuals unforgettable, and Donna Douglas certainly made her mark with hers. Her captivating energy also provided her with a distinct advantage. Even when she wasn't the focal point in a scene, she had a remarkable way of enlivening everything around her. Her enthusiasm could illuminate even the dullest situations, making her presence impossible to overlook. You were naturally attracted to her, even if she was merely there to support the main storyline. This ability to shine in any environment is something that people admired and cherished about her. In a world where the daily grind can feel burdensome, Donna's energy served as a refreshing reminder that life can be filled with joy, excitement, and fun. She inspired you to keep pace with her and perhaps for a brief moment, forget your own worries. This is one of the reasons why people were drawn to her. Her energy had a way of making you feel lighter and happier each time she appeared on screen. Her elegance was ageless. Donna Douglas possessed a natural grace that distinguished her from others. She wasn't ostentatious or attempting to be extravagant. It was a subtle, refined grace that made her unforgettable. Whether on screen or off, she had a manner of presenting herself that made you think, wow, she's classy. Consider her portrayal of Ellie Mae in the Beverly Hillbillies. Although Ellie was the cheerful country girl next door, there was an undeniable elegance in Donna's performance. Whether she donned simple country attire or played the role of the innocent yet charming hillbilly, there was a certain poise about her that made every scene feel significant. She made modest outfits look stylish, and her natural beauty radiated without the need for heavy makeup or extravagant clothing. It was all in her demeanor. There was a quiet sophistication about her that felt eternal. In reality, this elegance was not something she had to strive for. Donna was not one to chase trends or attempt to keep up with the latest crazes. Instead, she had a timeless sense of style that always seemed to suit her perfectly. Whether she was at an event or simply going about her daily life, her fashion choices were consistently chic without being excessive. It was this enduring elegance that made her not only beautiful but also remarkably graceful, even in her more relaxed moments. Men found that incredibly appealing. There was something profoundly attractive about a woman who didn't need to demand attention. Donna's elegance emanated from within. It was reflected in her posture, the way she communicated, and how she engaged with others. To get noticed, she didn't require much fanfare. People were drawn to her because she just radiated grace. The fact that Donna's elegance wasn't about perfection only served to highlight it. She had no intention of being some unreachable ideal. Rather, she felt at ease with herself. She possessed an uncommon kind of beauty that persisted throughout time because of her genuineness and gracious demeanor. In a society where fashions and styles were constantly evolving, Donna's grace was timeless. Because of this quality, she was adored by both men and women and excelled in every part she played. She was so nice. Without trying, Donna Douglas had a way of making you feel unique. She was more than just a performer. Her warmth, kindness, and groundedness were genuine. She was often praised for her warmth and approachability by both fans and co-stars. Her friendliness was genuine and unforced. It wasn't a deliberate attempt to win favor or a part of her persona. She just had a nice heart, and everything she did reflected that. However, Donna's generosity extended beyond her on-screen persona. Her true self was mirrored in it. She had a reputation for giving freely of her time, always stopping to talk to admirers and give them a sense of recognition. Her generosity was obviously not a show. She was just that way. Her sincere kindness and compassion were evident in her daily life as much as on the stage. In her dealings with her coworkers and the general public, Donna demonstrated her concern for others. She didn't have to take center stage. She was glad to just make everyone around her feel appreciated and happy. Donna's heart was always in the right place, whether she was assisting a co-star, interacting with a fan, or just being a good person in a society that frequently seemed to reward the reverse. Kindness like that is contagious. It's one of those attributes that attracts others to you. And guys adore a lady who is truly kind and considerate. Someone who helps others feel good about themselves has a really attractive quality. Donna's sincere generosity extended beyond her close acquaintances. She exuded it to everyone she encountered, which is one of the reasons so many people loved her. Furthermore, she wasn't limited to tiny acts of compassion. She was always willing to help and cared about issues and those in need. People who truly devote their time and energy to others without anticipating anything in return are hard to come across. Because of this, Donna Douglas was respected by everyone who encountered her, in addition to being adored by her acquaintances. To be loved, she didn't have to be a diva. Her generosity took care of everything. And that is a quality that is always in vogue, my friends. She was self-sufficient. Donna Douglas was more than just a charming person with a lovely face. She was an independent woman who never wavered. She forged her own way during a period when many actors were expected to conform to a certain stereotype. She was more appealing to both men and women since she didn't hesitate to advocate for herself or make her own choices. Consider her choice to become an actress. For a lady like Donna, who was from a small town and had the typical connections that many in Hollywood had, it wasn't the easiest path to take at the time. She was adamant, though. She didn't simply wait for a chance to present itself. She pursued it. Her perseverance ultimately brought her the part of Ellie Mae in the Beverly Hillbillies, which turned out to be a turning point in her career. The fact that Donna remained loyal to herself throughout her career only served to highlight how remarkable her independence was. Donna didn't strive to be someone she wasn't in a field where women were frequently expected to meet predetermined criteria. She didn't let anyone tell her who she should be, and she didn't follow trends. She had no problem establishing her own niche and working according to her own schedule. She exuded a captivating self-assurance. It demonstrated that she felt worthy without requiring approval from others. Her independence extended beyond her professional life. In her private life, Donna also didn't hesitate to take risks. She made time for travel, pursuing new hobbies, and living her life as she saw fit. She was never the kind to depend too much on other people or allow her pleasure to be determined by external factors. Rather, she put a lot of effort into controlling her own fate, which only served to increase her inspiration. A woman who knows what she wants and doesn't hesitate to pursue it is respected by both men and women. It was great that Donna was able to maintain her integrity while juggling her passions, personal life, and profession. She was unique and much more fascinating to those who admired her because of her fiery independence. One of the many things that made her so intriguing was the fact that she didn't let anything or anyone to get in her way. Her inherent attractiveness. It's hard to think of Donna Douglas without thinking of her stunning beauty. But it was more than just Donna's timeless beauty that set her apart. It was the ease of her being. One of her charms was that she wasn't your average Hollywood glamour queen. Her beauty had an air of authenticity, groundedness, and approachability. She looked stunning without having to put on a show. She was just that way. Her attractiveness contributed to the character's purity and simplicity. Donna's sparkling eyes, flowing blonde hair, and bright smile were the epitome of the girl next door, but with a dash of refinement. She stood out from the Hollywood starlets who frequently relied on glamorized looks and excessive cosmetics because of her inherent beauty. All of it wasn't necessary for Donna to shine. One of the reasons she won so many hearts was that, even without all the glitz, she was radiant. However, she was more than simply a pretty face. It also had to do with her demeanor. She was much more beautiful since she exuded self-confidence. Her self-assurance is captivating, and it was evident that she was at ease with her identity. Her elegance and composure enhanced her attractiveness and created a lasting impression whether she was on or off screen. Donna's natural style was refreshing in a world where individuals are always striving to meet unattainable beauty standards. She attracted attention without resorting to elaborate hairstyles or extensive makeup. Rather, she allowed herself to be true, which enhanced her beauty in the eyes of people around her. Her natural attractiveness drew the attention of men. It was natural, simple, and most importantly, genuine. You could picture wanting to spend time with her because of her attractiveness and laid-back personality. Because of the way she made you feel, not simply the way she looked. She gave the impression that beauty was accessible and relatable. She was admired by many because of this. Something about Donna Douglas was genuine. Her internal beauty was equal to her external beauty. And in the entertainment industry, that is uncommon. She worked hard. She was also one of Hollywood's hardest working women. She never just showed up for work, she always gave it her all. She demonstrated a tremendous work ethic in all of her endeavors, both on and off screen. And in a star-studded industry, it further distinguished her. It wasn't only about playing a joyful, loving persona and appearing cute in every part she played. For example, Donna put a lot of effort into making Ellie Mae unforgettable. By adding warmth, humor, and genuine emotion to a role that could have easily been played as one-dimensional, she committed herself to making sure the character felt genuine. Her acting abilities weren't the only thing that were evident. Donna also learned how to perform many of the stunts and physical tasks that her role needed, such as handling animals and riding a horse. Acting for her wasn't the only goal here. Her goal was to portray the character in the best possible light for the audience. But even when the cameras stopped shooting, she continued to work hard. Donna had a strong commitment to her work and was constantly looking for new ways to develop and challenge herself. She didn't limit herself to television. In addition, she starred in films and had a successful singing career, putting out a few country albums. She was able to keep growing her career throughout the years because of her adaptability and hard work ethic. She wasn't simply a show business workaholic either. Donna applied the same commitment to her private life. She put a lot of effort into juggling her professional and family obligations, making sure to remain modest as her notoriety increased. She was dedicated to her personal ideals and recognized the value of family, which helped her followers relate to her even more. Donna's dedication and determination were admirable to males. She was not the type to sit back and wait for success to find her. She earned it by going out. Furthermore, she didn't do it for attention or celebrity. She did it because she genuinely wanted to be the greatest at what she did and cared about it. People can't help but admire and respect that degree of commitment. She was grounded. The contagious, grounded energy of Donna Douglas gave everyone the impression that they were interacting with a genuine, approachable individual. She had no interest in adopting a phony lifestyle or playing the part of the Hollywood diva. She was so lovable because she was warm, friendly, and totally unpretentious. She exuded this relatable, realistic appeal. Although some of her characters may have lived in a Beverly Hills house, she was kind, jovial, and completely authentic in real life, far from the stereotypical pampered rich girl. She was also portrayed in the same way by Donna. She didn't pretend. She was simply Donna, the next-door girl who just so happened to be starring in a unique television show. Donna was renowned for being equally personable off-camera. She never let the stardom that accompanied the Beverly Hillbillies to consume her. She had a knack for making everyone feel valued and took the time to engage with her fans. In a field where celebrity frequently engenders a sense of entitlement, her genuineness and lack of vanity were refreshing. Donna never pretended to be superior to others. She just showed love and respect to everyone. The way she lived her life also demonstrated her groundedness. Despite enjoying the benefits of celebrity, she maintained a no-nonsense demeanor and avoided becoming entangled in the commotion that frequently accompanies it. Even as her fame increased, she remained true to herself and knew how to keep things honest. It's simple to respect someone who maintains his composure in the face of continual shifting. Her modest and sincere demeanor was very alluring to guys. Donna didn't come across as remote or frightening. You could picture sitting down with her, having a genuine conversation, and simply enjoying life without any pretension. For the same reason, women also admired her. No matter what life threw at you, Donna was an example of staying loyal to who you are. To be loved, she didn't have to be anything but herself. And in Hollywood, where so many people are putting on a show, that is a unique feature. A frequent business owner. Donna wasn't willing to sit on her laurels like many TV stars of her era did. She recognized the need of creating something that would last outside of the spotlight and made sure to live a life that demonstrated her independence and business savvy. Donna didn't merely disappear from the spotlight after her legendary performance as Ellie Mae Clampett on the Beverly Hillbillies. She demonstrated her ability to succeed in a variety of fields by shifting her attention to other endeavors. She was more than simply an ex-TV personality. She was a woman who could accomplish her goals. For example, Donna became a writer and published novels such as Donna Douglas, The Girl with Everything and Miss Donna's Cookbook. She wrote about more than simply Hollywood and food. Her love of imparting knowledge and fostering human connections was evident in her novels. It was evident that Donna's artistic abilities went well beyond her acting career. She didn't stop there, though. Donna also dabbled in real estate, demonstrating her willingness to try new things. Donna demonstrated that she could handle the intricacies of a cutthroat industry while retaining her grace and charisma in a field that demanded business acumen and a deep comprehension of markets. Her decision to become a financial advisor was arguably one of her most unexpected but remarkable decisions. Donna took charge of her financial future during a time when many celebrities were at the whim of managers and agents. She learned the ins and outs of wealth management and assisted others in making wise financial decisions. For her, this was more than a side gig. It was a legitimate career that showcased her ingenuity and dedication to elevating both herself and others. There was a raging controversy underneath the glitz and glamour of old Hollywood. Imagine gossip, blackmail, and love triangles so outrageous that they would cause Twitter to blow up right now. The scandal involving Clark Gable and Loretta Young's love child. The story that Clark Gable and Loretta Young had a hidden child together was one of the most talked about. These two were co-stars in The Call of the Wild in 1935. Sparks was reported to have flown off camera. Gable was known for having on-set flings and was married to socialite Rhea Langham. In contrast, Loretta Young was well known for her devout Catholicism and meticulously maintained facade of innocence. Following the completion of Wrapped, Young vanished from the public eye. She returned a few months later and declared that she had adopted Judy, a baby girl. According to her account, Judy was an orphan in need of a home. But the cover story was difficult to accept because Judy looked a lot like Gable, even down to his unusual ears. Rumors of a covert pregnancy and an affair spread right away. Neither celebrity spoke. Known as the King of Hollywood, Gable never responded to the claims in public. Young defended her reputation and job by standing by her adoption claim. However, insiders suggested that Gable visited Judy in secret, which fueled the rumors even more. According to reports, MGM intervened to suppress the news out of concern for the actors' reputations. For almost 60 years, the truth was kept secret. Not until 1994 did Young confirm what many had long assumed in a rare interview. She said that she had a non-consensual contact with Gable while filming The Call of the Wild, which led to the birth of Judy, her biological daughter. This startling discovery transformed the controversy from a romanticized affair into one of exploitation, giving it a much harsher tone. Both Gable and Young's public personalities became more nuanced as a result of the confession. It revealed the darker side of old Hollywood, but it also put a stop to a lifetime of whispers for Judy. Joan Crawford's purportedly blue films. Her career was the epitome of success in Hollywood. However, rumors of a scandal lurked beneath her polished exterior, threatening to destroy her reputation. Crawford was one of MGM's biggest performers by the 1930s. Rumors, however, implied that her ascent to stardom had a more sinister past. The allegations that she had worked in pornographic films to supplement her income prior to her big break in Hollywood. Often referred to as stag films, these movies were a part of the 1920s underground movement. It was reported that Crawford, who was then known as Lucille LaSauer, had taken part in these shows when she was just starting out as a struggling dancer. Her quick rise to fame in Hollywood raised suspicions among fans, who theorized that she had been assisted in burying her history by a prominent person. MGM's notorious fixer, Eddie Manx, was frequently connected to these stories. Manx was the studio's go-to person for star protection and mess cleanup. He allegedly took over the Crawford case, locating and destroying any negatives of the alleged movies. The notion is hardly outlandish, considering MGM was notorious for its fixation on managing its performers' public personas. However, there has never been any hard evidence of Manx's involvement or the videos themselves. Throughout her life, Crawford refuted the accusations. She referred to the rumors as malicious lies that were intended to undermine her. With her contentious book, Mommy Dearest, her adoptive daughter Christina rekindled public curiosity about Crawford's personal life decades later. The memoir's startling depiction of Crawford fueled speculation about her secret history, even though it didn't directly address the adult film claims. The existence of these said films has never been verified, despite the fascination. Were the rumors true, or were they a smear campaign against a strong Hollywood woman? We may never find out, but the rumors have made sure that Crawford's name is as notorious as it is renowned, demonstrating the limitless nature of Hollywood's fixation with controversy. The accusations of espionage against Errol Flynn. His charisma and skill with a sword made him the quintessential Hollywood swashbuckler. However, a more sinister tale began to spread during World War II. It was said that Flynn, the man who made Robin Hood smile, was a Nazi spy. The FBI kept an active file on him because they took these rumors seriously, no matter how crazy they seemed. The accusations were not without merit. Hermann Urban, an Austrian physician with verified Nazi connections, was a close friend of Flynn's. Despite their mutual love of travel, Urban's known ties to German intelligence caused concern. During the war, Flynn traveled to Europe frequently, which hurt his case. The claims gained traction when you combined his Austrian heritage with his seeming disinterest in the Allied cause. The book Errol Flynn, The Untold Story by Charles Hyam helped the conspiracy gain traction in 1980. According to Hyam, Flynn was a double agent who gave the Nazis information while preserving his Hollywood persona. According to the book, Flynn was the ideal spy because of his charisma and global lifestyle. Additionally, it charged Flynn with assisting Urban and other Nazi sympathizers by exploiting his influence in Hollywood. However, Hyam's assertions drew harsh criticism. Supporters of Flynn and historians contended that the evidence was tenuous and conjectural. Despite their size, the FBI's files were devoid of any clear evidence. Hyam's book was called a hit piece by Flynn's supporters, who said the author exaggerated it for dramatic effect. Many people think Flynn's careless lifestyle, rather than true betrayal, was what sparked the rumors. The damage was done in spite of the pushback. Flynn's reputation was tarnished by the mere implication of espionage. The possibility of Hollywood's most attractive hero having Nazi sympathies is still a fascinating hypothetical scenario. What is the truth, then? Was Flynn only an adventurer who made poor choices in companions? Or was there something more darker hidden under his charm? Whether Flynn's greatest performance was on-screen or off is up for dispute among fans and detractors due to the absence of conclusive evidence. The enigmatic diaries of Marilyn Monroe. When she passed away in 1962, there were more questions than answers. Her purported hidden diaries are the subject of one of the most persistent rumors. According to reports, these notebooks included startling information regarding her interactions with John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert. These purported journals have contributed to the mystery surrounding Monroe's life and death and stoked conspiracy theories for decades. Monroe had a reputation for journaling. She used them to record her experiences, write poetry, and think back on her life. In his book Goddess, The Secret Lives of Marilyn Monroe, biographer Anthony Summers proposed that she had secretly taped private information from her talks with the Kennedys. Political secrets and facts that may have made her a liability were allegedly contained in certain entries. The rumors have only been heightened by the circumstances surrounding Monroe's death. She was declared a victim of a barbiturate overdose after being discovered dead at her Brentwood home. But there were questions about the FBI and LAPD's role in the inquiry. According to rumors, Monroe's home was thoroughly examined, and anything that might be implicated, such as the purported diaries, was discreetly taken out. The fire was fueled by others close to Monroe, including her friends, who claimed to have seen her write about her interactions with influential individuals. These diaries have never been located, despite decades of conjecture. Some people think they were demolished to safeguard the well-known people's reputations. Others contend that the diaries were made up by the media to sensationalize her tragic narrative and that they never existed. Books, documentaries, and theories have continued to speculate about what they might have held despite the lack of proof. Charles Chaplin's fight for fatherhood. Despite having revolutionized film, Charles Chaplin's personal life frequently made the news. Chaplin was already the subject of controversy by the 1940s, and Joan Barry's paternity suit from 1943 only served to stoke the flames. Aspiring actress Barry, 22, asserted that Chaplin was the father of her daughter, Carol Ann. The case swiftly turned into a media circus, overshadowing Chaplin's masterful filmmaking. Chaplin and Barry had broken up before she became pregnant, and Barry adamantly denied being the father of her kid. He cited Barry's unpredictable actions, such as pursuing him and breaking into his house, as proof of her instability. Nevertheless, the matter proceeded to court as her claims acquired traction. Chaplin consented to a blood test in an attempt to establish his innocence. This was state-of-the-art science at the time. The outcomes were evident. The father was not Chaplin's biological father. There was a catch, though. Blood testing were not admissible in paternity proceedings under California law. Chaplin was ordered to pay child support after the jury decided against him. The ruling sparked popular outcry, with many people doubting the decision's fairness. The courtroom was not the end of the scandal. It provided the very thing Chaplin's adversaries, especially FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, needed to step up their attacks. Hoover, who was already wary of Chaplin's political views, portrayed him as immoral and un-American during the trial. There was no subtlety in the FBI's attack against Chaplin. He was forced to leave the U.S. in 1952 as a result of the strain it put on an already stressful situation. He moved to Switzerland and lived there for the remainder of his life. Although the paternity lawsuit had a lasting impact on Chaplin's latter years, he continued to make innovative films in spite of the controversy. The alleged drug coercion of Judy Garland. Although Judy's talent shone brightly on film, her private life revealed a more sinister side. Her career has been closely examined because of the alleged abuse she suffered under MGM's iron grip, particularly when she was a teenager. Many think that in order to keep her working at a relentless pace, the studio planned her drug addiction. When Garland signed with MGM, she was just 13 years old. Executives harshly ridiculed her appearance, calling her the little hunchback, despite the fact that her voice was unparalleled. She had to adhere to strict dietary restrictions in order to meet Hollywood's strict standards. According to reports, she ate diet pills, chicken soup, and black coffee while being closely watched by studio employees. The most startling allegations center on Garland supposedly receiving amphetamines and pep pills to keep her energized for long production schedules. She reportedly worked up to 18-hour days during The Wizard of Oz, using only these stimulants. Barbiturates were allegedly prescribed to her to aid in her sleep, resulting in a risky cycle of dependency. Garland's battles with addiction were evident by adulthood. The strain started to show in her professional and personal life. She frequently talked openly about her experiences with the studio system, stating, "They had us labor non-stop. When the work was done, they would give us sleeping pills to put us to sleep after giving us medicines to keep us moving long after we were worn out." Her struggles continued after that. She experienced relationship problems, hospitalizations, and public breakdowns. Her unadulterated skill and tenacity kept her battling for a spot in Hollywood in spite of these obstacles. Garland died tragically from an overdose in 1969 when he was only 47 years old. For a celebrity who had contributed so much to the business and gotten so little in return, it was a tragic ending. Her tale serves as a sobering reminder of how old Hollywood frequently regarded its stars more like commodities than like human beings, putting money before welfare. Although Judy Garland's genius will live on forever, her hardships show the negative aspects of celebrity at the heyday of the industry. Thelma Todd's murder mystery. Hollywood was shocked by her death in December 1935. She was adored for her glitzy appearance and humorous timing, earning her the nickname Ice Cream Blonde. Todd was a rising star at the age of 29, effortlessly switching from silent to talkies. Along the Pacific Coast Highway, she also operated Thelma Todd Sidewalk Cafe, a popular hangout for celebrities. However, her success was overshadowed by her unexplained strange death. Roland West, Todd's business partner and lover, had her body discovered slumped in his car in his garage. There was a great deal of conjecture surrounding the garage above her cafe. Her death from carbon monoxide poisoning from her car's running engine was declared accidental by the coroner. However, her death's circumstances didn't fit up, leading to persistent rumors. Mobsters allegedly threatened Todd with money demands from her business in the weeks prior to her death. Her company was viewed as ideal real estate by organized crime leaders for their operations. She might have been in danger because she refused to obey. To make matters worse, Todd was spotted fighting with her ex-husband Pat Deco, who had known ties to the mob, at a party the previous evening. Roland West came next. West became yet another prominent suspect due of his domineering actions and tense relationship with Todd. After a fight, some thought West had locked her in the garage without seeing the car was still running. The suspicion was only heightened by West's contradictory reports of that evening. The situation was not improved by the coroner's report. Speculation about a potential struggle was sparked by the mention of minor bruises on Todd's face and body. However, there were no overt indications of foul play, therefore investigators lacked reliable proof. The case was concluded as an accidental death in spite of the public outcry. True crime fans continue to love Thelma Todd's story. Was it a mob hit or a terrible accident? A terrible argument between lovers. Her death will continue to be one of Hollywood's most talked about mysteries as long as the truth is elusive. Rocky Hudson's secret. He had everything. Charm, good looks, and a career that most actors could only imagine. In the 1950s, he rose to prominence as Hollywood's preferred leading man, starring in romantic blockbusters that cemented his reputation as the quintessential representation of masculinity. His admirers adored him. His reputation was enough to sell out cinemas, and studios depended on him. However, there was a truth behind the flawlessly manicured appearance that Hollywood did everything in its power to conceal. Early in his career, there were rumors that Hudson was gay. In those days, a celebrity's career may be destroyed by simply a whiff of homosexuality. Henry Wilson, Hudson's agent, was notorious for his ability to cover up scandals and brutally manage his clients' reputations. Wilson arranged a marriage as a quick fix when rumors about Hudson began to spread. Hudson wed Wilson's secretary, Phyllis Gates, in 1955. It was not a subtle moment. It happened immediately following a tabloid's threat to release an article on Hudson's private life. Although Gates later stated that she was unaware of Hudson's sexual orientation at the time of their marriage, her account has been questioned by several. By the time the 3-year marriage was over, the whispers had been put to rest. Hudson led a meticulously segregated life behind locked doors. Co-stars and close friends were aware of the reality, but they remained silent out of loyalty and concern for the industry's reaction. With their enormous power, studio bosses had no trouble squelching tabloid reports that may bring their golden boy into disrepute. When Hudson revealed he had immune deficiency syndrome in 1985, everything changed. He stunned fans by being the first well-known celebrity to reveal the illness in public, which validated the speculations. At a period when advanced HIV sickness was highly stigmatized, Hudson's courage helped raise awareness of the issue on a global scale. In addition to exposing the hypocrisy of a business that sought excellence at all costs, his death later that year was widely lamented. The murder of Johnny Stompanato and Lana Turner. The connection between Johnny Stompanato and Lana Turner was everything a tabloid could hope for. A gangster boyfriend, a Hollywood star, and a dramatic conclusion. Being a well-known associate of criminal kingpin Mickey Cohen, Stompanato was more than simply bad news. He was a threat. His violent tendencies swiftly transformed their romance into a poisonous tangle of disputes and reconciliations, despite his charm. The relationship had reached a breaking point by 1958. A dispute in Turner's Beverly Hills home turned violent on April 4. Turner subsequently testified that after Stompanato threatened her 14-year-old daughter, Cheryl Crane, intervened and stabbed him in the abdomen with a kitchen knife. He passed away nearly immediately. The aftermath was chaotic. The episode became a national issue when the media descended on Turner's house. The headlines were rife with conjecture about what actually transpired that evening. Cheryl said she defended herself to keep her mother safe at the coroner's inquiry. Turner supported her while sobbing as she described the mistreatment she had experienced. Though there were rumors of a different story, the jury decided that the murder was justified. Some questioned how Cheryl, a kid with no violent past, could inflict such a deadly wound with such accuracy. Others thought that Cheryl took the blame in order to save her mother's job, and that Turner herself had used the knife. An additional level of mystery was introduced by Stompanato's connections to the mob. Rumor had it that his death was anything but an accident. According to some, Mickey Cohen planned the murder to absolve himself of responsibility or to appease a personal grievance. Naturally, Cohen denied any role. Turner was tormented by the scandal even after the jury's verdict. Even though she kept performing, the tragedy will always be associated with her dazzling persona. The burden of public scrutiny also affected Cheryl. The case, which combines genuine crime and celebrity drama, is still among the most notorious tales from old Hollywood. The Stompanato murder continues to spark unending conjecture, regardless of whether it was a cover-up or a desperate act of protection. It's evident now, decades later, that this was no typical Hollywood split. Everyone involved was scarred by the affair that made headlines. Hollywood and Black Dahlia. One of Hollywood's most sinister mysteries is the murder of Elizabeth Short, often known as the Black Dahlia. Her disfigured body was discovered in a deserted Los Angeles lot in January 1947. The crime was horrific and was depicted in graphic detail. With every detail splattered throughout newspapers, the case instantly made headlines. Short, who is only 22 years old, came to Los Angeles with the intention of becoming an actress. She had trouble finding a job, like many others, and frequently turned to friends or admirers for help. Her private life became the subject of conjecture after her murder made headlines. Both the public and reporters wanted to connect her to Hollywood's elite. There were rumors that she had gone to parties hosted by influential people in the sector. Some even argued that she died too soon because she turned down the advances of the wrong man. The involvement of Dr. George Huddle, a well-known and affluent doctor, is one notion that defies death. Huddle was well known for throwing lavish parties that were frequented by intellectuals, artists, and Hollywood insiders. His own son, retired LAPD detective Steve Huddle, accused him of being the murderer decades later. Steve provided evidence that matched the surgical accuracy of the crime, such as old photographs of a lady who looked like Short and his father's medical knowledge. The charges against George were not unexpected. He was being looked into for other offenses in the 1940s, such as his secretary's unexplained death. Huddle's involvement in the Black Dahlia case has sparked countless rumors, despite the fact that he was never charged in it. Although Elizabeth Short's murder has not been solved, her name will always be associated with Hollywood's dark side. Whether it was because of her goals, a fortuitous meeting, or something darker, the crime brought attention to the threats that are present in the. Nevertheless, there was a darker underside of vicious ambition, acrimonious rivalries, and flaming tempers during Hollywood's heyday, when glitz reigned and movie stars gleamed on screen. Behind the. Despite their glamorous appearances and brilliant smiles, some of Hollywood's biggest performers formed enemies with directors, co-stars, and even their own families. We'll uncover the tales of the most despised ladies in vintage Hollywood in this video. We'll explore their infamous conflicts, power struggles, and the scandals that made them hated on and off set, from the vicious Joan Fontaine to the aspirational Anne Baxter and the scandalous Gabber. How did Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine's long-standing rivalry manifest itself on screen? What caused Anne Baxter and B. Davis to become antagonistic during All About Eve? What caused Zia Gabber's name to be associated with scandal? Fontaine, Joan Fontaine and her sister Olivia de Havilland had the most notorious feud. Their rivalry, which began in boyhood and grew more intense as they both sought jobs in Hollywood, was legendary. The two sisters' animosity toward one another became well known, and their tense relationship was frequently displayed in public. The tension peaked at the Academy Awards in 1942. For Suspicion and Hold Back the Dawn, respectively, Fontaine and de Havilland received nominations for Best Actress. Her sister was humiliated and incensed when Fontaine dismissed Devlin's attempt to congratulate her after she was declared the winner. The sisters hardly communicated for decades following Fontaine's affront, and de Havilland never forgiven him. The competition was so fierce that Joan even called de Havilland out in her memoirs, No Bed of Roses, for attempting to take her roles and their mother's love. Fontaine battled in other relationships than her quarrel with de Havilland. Fontaine and her co-star Laurence Olivier were at odds when they were working on Rebecca. Hitchcock selected Fontaine for the lead part, despite Olivier's desire for his ex-wife, Vivien Leigh, to play it. Olivier was therefore openly antagonistic toward Fontaine, often disparaging her performance and critiquing her acting abilities. Later, Fontaine recalled that Olivier treated her cruelly and unrelentingly during the production. She also had a tense connection with Hitchcock. Fontaine felt deceived and uneasy as a result of Hitchcock's unorthodox technique of highlighting her fears to increase her susceptibility on screen. She thought Hitchcock enjoyed making her tense while filming and called him merciless. Notwithstanding these conflicts, Fontaine's roles in Hitchcock's movies brought her praise from critics and solidified her position as a leading lady in Hollywood. Fontaine's reputation for being challenging also applied to her other co-stars. She argued with Orson Welles on the set of Jane Eyre, calling him conceited and unbearable. Her reputation as a conservative princess who didn't want to share the spotlight was further solidified by her tense relationships with other famous women, such as Ginger Rogers and Vivien Leigh. Havilland, Olivia. Joan Fontaine may have been hated by her sister, but Joan also didn't love Olivia de Havilland. The rivalry between Joan Fontaine and Olivia de Havilland, who were born only 15 months apart, lingered in Hollywood for almost a century. De Havilland really set the tone for her tumultuous relationship with her sister when she reportedly joked, "Our feud isn't a feud, it's a brawl." De Havilland's most well-known parts are her portrayal of the kind Melanie Hamilton Wilkes in the classic film Gone with the Wind, 1939, and her two Oscar-winning performances in Toach His Own, 1946, and The Aries, 1949. De Havilland was known to be quite competitive, even though she was portrayed as a kind and collected celebrity. When she lost the Oscar for Best Actress to her sister in 1941, her rivalry with Fontaine reached a climax. The fact that Fontaine won for Suspicion 1941 clearly irritated de Havilland. She exacted retribution 2 years later when she won her first Oscar for To Each His Own 1946. De Havilland's second Oscar for The Eyes 1949 further solidified her supremacy. De Havilland's aggressive behavior wasn't just directed at her sister. Biographer Charles Hyam claims that de Havilland once said, "Joan is very bright and sharp and quick-witted, but she's also very self-centered." She and her co-star Errol Flynn had a well-known quarrel in 8 swashbuckling escapades, such as Captain Blood, 1935, and The Escapades of Robin Hood, 1938. De Havilland was allegedly the target of unwanted approaches from Flynn, who called her a frigid fish for turning him down. She fought not just with performers but also with directors, as he subsequently described in his autobiography, "My wicked, wicked ways, Libby and I were like the sea and the shore, drifting slowly apart." She frequently disagreed with Michael Curtis, who directed her in Dodge City, 1939, and The Adventures of Robin Hood. Curtis was well known for treating performers badly, and de Havilland was no exception. At one point, she left the set to protest Curtis's actions and wouldn't come back until the studio stepped in. But de Havilland's conflict with Warner Brothers was one of his most important conflicts. She sued the studio in 1943, arguing that the de Havilland law, the practice of extending an actor's contract for time spent on suspension, was unlawful. In addition to releasing her from her limited contract, her triumph transformed the Hollywood studio structure by giving actresses more creative flexibility. Gloria Graham. As the femme fatale in movies like The Big Heat, 1953, and In a Lonely Place, 1950, Gloria enthralled audiences with her signature seductive voice and seductive smile. She was one of the most contentious characters in old Hollywood, but beneath the smoldering charm was a disturbed actress whose life was full with scandals. Frequently, Graham's personal life was more dramatic than her on-screen personas. Her unpredictable actions and contempt for her co-star Humphrey Bogart during the filming of In a Lonely Place were the talk of the town. Graham's husband at the time, director Nicholas Ray, discovered her in bed with his 13-year-old son, Anthony. Following their 1952 divorce due to the incident, Graham wed Anthony Ray 10 years later. Many of Graham's co-workers were enraged by this infamous relationship, including Nicholas Ray, her former director and husband. Despite the chaos, Graham kept getting well-known roles during the 1950s. She won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her role in The Bad and the Beautiful in 1952, but the controversy surrounding her on-set behavior overshadowed her victory. Graham was reportedly rejected by co-star Lana Turner, who called her a manipulative diva and unprofessional. Just as erratic was Graham's relationship with the filmmakers. She had a falling out with Fritz Lang on The Big Heat, who said she was hard to direct because she was often changing the screenplay. Lang reportedly thought about removing her because of her unbearable demeanor, but producer Robert Arthur urged she stay. As the doomed Moll Debbie Marsh, Graham gave one of her most memorable performances in spite of the tension. When Graham played Adu Annie in the production of Oklahoma 1955, more controversy broke up. She was often late and demanded special treatment, according to co-star Eddie Albert, who described her as a nightmare to deal with. Bosley Crowther, a critic for the New York Times, lambasted her performance, saying it was unconvincing and miscast. One of the most prosperous actresses of the pre-code era was Miriam Hopkins. Miriam Hopkins, well known for her parts in movies such as Mr. Hyde, 1931, The Story of Temple Drake, 1933, and Design for Living, 1933. She was a sought-after leading lady due to her talent and beauty, but she was challenging to work with because of her temperament and intense competitiveness. Hopkins had a terrible reputation for being arrogant and demanding, regularly clashing with directors and co-stars alike. One of her earlier confrontations was with director Ruben Mamoulian on Dr. Mr. Hyde and Jekyll. Mamoulian recalled that Hopkins needed continual assurance on her performance because she was erratic and difficult. Hopkins gave a fantastic performance that cemented her reputation as a rising star, despite their tense relationship. Her competition with B. One of the most notorious feuds in Hollywood is still Davis. Both women were first featured in the 1939 version of Edith Wharton's story, The Old Maid. While Davis introduced a more realistic approach, Hopkins was renowned for her dramatic manner. Their disparate approaches to acting caused a great deal of initial conflict as each actress tried to surpass the other. Later on, Davis acknowledged that he purposefully overacted in sequences with Hopkins in order to command attention. When they were reunited in Old Acquaintance in 1943, the conflict intensified. To the annoyance of director Vincent Sherman, Hopkins insisted on reenacting scenes several times. One particularly memorable incident involved Davis losing her temper and violently shaking Hopkins during a scene, almost hurting her. Sherman observed, they hated each other with a vengeance. Hopkins' conceit also caused her to clash with influential men such as Herbert Marshall and Frederick March. Throughout Ernst Lubitsch's film Design for Living, Hopkins and March and co-star Gary Cooper fought for the audience's attention. She was the most challenging actress Lubitsch had ever worked with, and he found her behavior frustrating. To the dismay of her co-stars, Hopkins frequently demanded script revisions and more screen time as a result of her fears. Hopkins had a sensational role in the story of Temple Drake that brought her not only acclaim but also controversy. The movie was banned in a number of jurisdictions because of her depiction of the sexually violated Temple, which was deemed too graphic. Hopkins enjoyed the limelight, but conservative audiences and reviewers also took notice of her risque performance. Throughout his career, May Clark experienced both success and adversity. Famous for her parts in Frankenstein, 1931, and The Public Enemy, 1931, Clark's ascent to fame was tainted by disputes with directors and co-stars, making her one of Hollywood's most difficult actresses. In The Public Enemy, James Cagney famously smashed a grapefruit into her face, making it her most memorable moment. Although the scene made Clark famous, she and Cagney did not have a cordial relationship behind the scenes. Later, Cagney observed that Clark's attitude and demands for special treatment made her challenging to deal with. Despite this, they went on to star together in another picture, Lady Killer, 1933, where tensions again arose. Clark's fierce personality wasn't limited to Cagney. During the production of Frankenstein, she battled with director James Whale, refusing to film key parts unless alterations were made to the script. Boris Karloff, who played the monster, recalled Clark as headstrong and demanding, sometimes disturbing the shooting schedule with her demands. However, her portrayal as Elizabeth Lavenza was well received, and Frankenstein became one of the most influential horror pictures of all time. Off-screen, Clark's relationships with other actresses were equally difficult. According to reports, she and Novak, her co-star in Three Wise Girls, 1932, had a heated argument about screen time and billing. Despite her early success, Clark's career started to wane in the mid-1930s. Dvorak reportedly said, "May was always ready for a fight, even when no one was interested." Their rivalry was exacerbated when Clark accused Dvorak of trying to steal her role in the Penguin Pool Murder, 1932. She was disliked by studio bosses because of her difficult demeanor and conflict penchant. In one famous incident, she argued with director George Stevens about her lines on the set of The Housekeeper's Daughter, 1939, and left the set. She was eventually persuaded to come back by Stevens, but the episode cemented her reputation as untrustworthy. Another factor in Clark's decline was her tumultuous personal life. Her first marriage to Scott Ames ended in divorce after just 2 years, and her second marriage to Stevens Bancroft lasted even less. By the early 1940s, Clark's luster had waned dramatically and she was limited to supporting roles and small parts. Anne Baxter. Anne Baxter's turn as the ambitious Eve Harrington in All About Eve, 1950, remains one of cinema's defining performances. But the role of the cunning understudy wasn't just fiction, it echoed whispers about Baxter herself, who off-screen carried a reputation for being just as ambitious, calculating, and determined as the character she portrayed. Her rise had been meteoric. By the age of 23, she already held an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, one for her role in The Razor's Edge, 1946. Yet it was All About Eve that etched her name into Hollywood history. The on-screen tension between Baxter's Eve and Bette Davis's aging Margot Channing spilled over into real life, fueling one of Hollywood's most notorious rivalries. Davis accused Baxter of playing her role too aggressively, of stealing moments that weren't hers. She didn't mince words either, once sneering that Baxter should have been called an backstabber instead of Baxter. The feud grew bitter. When Baxter demanded equal billing with Davis, it nearly tore the production apart. Director Joseph L. Mankiewicz later admitted he spent much of the shoot refereeing between the two actresses, describing their exchanges as volatile and electric. But Anne's ambition didn't stop there. On the set of The Ten Commandments, 1956, where she played the scheming Nefertiti, Baxter clashed with legendary director Cecil B. DeMille. She pushed for script rewrites, fought for more screen time, and demanded that her character's presence rival the biblical epic's grandeur. DeMille found her demands infuriating, yet reluctantly gave in, convinced that her commanding presence would help draw audiences. And Baxter wasn't content to simply be a star, she wanted control, power, and lasting influence. And in an industry dominated by men and ruled by egos, her defiance made her both unforgettable and polarizing. Her behavior was erratic and temperamental, according to her co-star Charlton H., who played Moses. In his memoirs, H. mentioned that Baxter was frequently challenging to work with and prone to mood swings, which caused production disruptions. It was also known that Baxter was a manipulator in her private life. The fundamental reason for her divorce from actor John Hodiak in 1953 was her tendency to be controlling. Similar issues plagued her second marriage to Randolph Galt, where G described Baxter's incessant demands and unpredictable behavior as making her impossible to live with. Jean Tierney. Early in her career, Tierney started having problems. She has a reputation for being difficult to work with despite her obvious talent and beauty. Director Otto Preer discovered that she was demanding and unduly preoccupied with her beauty during the filming of Laura. Tierney was irritated by his insistence on doing several takes to get the desired effect. Notwithstanding their disagreements, Tierney gave one of her most memorable performances, securing her place as a leading lady. During the filming of Whirlpool 1949, in which Tierney played a kleptomaniac under hypnosis, her relationship with Pinger deteriorated even more. Tierney, according to Premer, was challenging and erratic, and her performance was frequently impacted by her battles with depression. Although Tierney's subtle performance was praised by critics, her and Premier's animosity meant they would never collaborate again. Additionally, Tierney's actions damaged her relationships with her co-stars. She apparently regarded Cornel Wilde to be conceited and unethical, and they had a falling out on the Leave Her to Heaven stage. Tierney was later characterized by Wilde as sullen and aloof, frequently declining to communicate with him in between scenes. Despite the conflict, Leave Her to Heaven was a huge hit and earned Tierney a nomination for Best Actress at the Academy Awards. Dana Andrews, who co-starred with Tierney in Laura and the Iron Curtain, 1948, was another co-star who was enraged by her. Andrews described Tierney as a perfectionist to the point of weariness and said that her perfectionism frequently resulted in heated disputes on set. He later acknowledged that her unpredictable behavior might have been exacerbated by her mental health issues. Tierney was demanding of makeup artists and costume designers due to her anxieties about her appearance. The renowned costume designer Edith Head observed that Tierney was meticulous about every aspect of her attire and frequently insisted on last-minute adjustments. Ben Nye, a makeup artist, remembered that Tierney would often not leave her dressing room until all of her eyelashes were in place. Tierney had an equally turbulent personal life. Infidelity and financial difficulties plagued her first marriage to Oleg Cassini, which ended in divorce in 1952. Rita Wertha's ex-husband, Prince Ali Khan, and Tierney had a tumultuous relationship after that. According to reports, the prince's family didn't like Tierney. Plett Goddard she married Charlie Chaplin in the early 1930s, which marked the beginning of her ascent to fame. Although Chaplin's influence aided at the beginning of her career, her skill quickly became apparent in parts such as Hannah in The Great Dictator and The Gammon in Modern Times. However, infidelity and professional rivalries plagued her marriage to Chaplin. Chaplin subsequently said that Goddard was very ambitious, and the two got divorced in 1942. She had both acclaim and a conflict as a result of her role in So Proudly We Hail. According to reports, Goddard obstructed her co-star Veronica Lake's performance by demanding screenplay modifications that would benefit her role. Later, Lake accused Goddard of plotting scene theft and influencing directors with her attractiveness. Goddard was nominated for an Academy Award for her portrayal in spite of the stress. Because of her ambition, Goddard frequently clashed with her directors and co-stars. She argued over artistic control with director Cecil B. Deal on the set of 1947's Unconquered. Goddard insisted on showing a stronger lady, but Demily wanted her role to seem more fragile. Demily allegedly threatened to replace her because their fights got so intense. She also had a tense relationship with her co-star Fred MacMurray in Standing Room Only 1944. According to MacMurray, Goddard was dismissive and domineering, frequently undermining his ideas for their scenes. Susan Hayward, however, dismissed his criticism, saying, "In this business, you've got to look out for yourself." Early in his career, Hayward demonstrated tenacity. Originally from Brooklyn, Edith Amerner arrived in Hollywood in 1937 to compete for the part of Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. She signed a deal with Warner Bros. Despite not getting the role, and after a while she moved to Paramount, where she played in Reap the Wild Wind, 1942, and Bosta, 1939. However, she frequently clashed with directors and co-stars due to her unyielding attitude. Her feud with B was one of the most well-known. Davis during Where Love Has Gone's 1964 production. Each actress demanded top billing and rewrites to improve their characters, which led to a creative control dispute between Hayward and Davis. In order to prevent conflicts on set, director Edward Dimitri had to shoot each scene separately because of how fierce their rivalry had grown. According to reports, Hayward thought Davis was arrogant and annoying, and Davis called Hayward a pushy, demanding redhead. Hayward's disputes extended beyond Davis. She had a turbulent relationship with Nicholas Ray, the director of On the Lusty Men, 1952. She was temperamental and unruly, frequently refusing to follow instructions and demanding that her lines be rewritten, according to Ray. She was especially challenging for co-star Robert Mitchum, who described her as a fiery spitfire. She also displayed her aggressive nature on the set of The Conqueror, 1956, in which she co-starred with John Wayne. Because of their strong personalities, Wayne and Hayward frequently argued about their scenes. Wayne subsequently said Hayward was explosive and unpredictable, like handling dynamite. Socialite and actress Zsa Gabor, who was born in Hungary, was well known for both her acting profession and her opulent lifestyle and gorgeous persona. Although she starred in movies such as Lily 1953 and Moulin Rouge 1952. Her roles were eclipsed by her colorful attitude and appetite for controversy, which made her one of Hollywood's most infamous divas. Gabor was taken into custody for slapping Beverly Hills in 1989. Paul Kramer, the police officer who stopped her for a traffic infraction. Gabor served 3 days in jail and paid fines and reparations at the conclusion of the widely reported trial. Her reputation as a temperamental diva was cemented by the incident, and she capitalized on the notoriety by joking, "He deserved it." Gabor's diva demeanor also affected her directors and co-stars. She argued with director Edward Burns about her character's attire on the Queen of Outer Space, 1958 set, insisting on dressing in more glitzy attire than the part called for. Zsa was always demanding special treatment and refusing to listen to direction, Burns later said, and her feuds weren't only with directors. Zsa's relationship with Ava was strained by jealousy and competition, resulting in frequent arguments both on and off set, while Gabor frequently found herself at odds with other actresses, especially with her own sister Eva Gabor and Shelley Winters, who called Gabor outrageous and selfish, saying that she would throw tantrums just to get attention. Gabor, who married her 9th husband, Frederick Prince von Holt, in 1986, and stayed with him until her death, gained notoriety in her final years for her bizarre public appearances and infamous legal disputes. What do a telegram divorce, a sabotage sisterhood, and a banned stage script have in common? Joan Fontaine. And this isn't the version Hollywood ever wanted you to hear. The girl who changed her name wasn't born a star. She wasn't even born Joan. Their relationship was characterized by scandal, with Van Hal frequently making outrageous claims about his heritage and adopting adult men to continue his royal lineage. She was born Joan de Beauvoir de Havilland in Tokyo, Japan, in 1917. Although her British parents were well-to-do and well-respected, Joan didn't exactly have an easy childhood, suffering from chronic illnesses like measles and anemia. When her marriage failed, her mother moved her and her sister Olivia to California, where the rivalry subtly started. Both sisters were interested in acting. Immediately after Olivia de Havilland jumped in and caught the attention of Hollywood, Joan, who was still in her teens, was warned that two de Havillands would not work in the same field. She took a phone book, looked through the names, and chose Fontaine after her stepfather. Suddenly, Joan de Havilland disappeared, and Joan Fontaine was born. Studio heads weren't impressed, calling her too quiet, too soft, and not sexy enough for stardom. Her early years in Hollywood weren't a fairy tale. She began with small roles as maids, secretaries, and girls who hardly got screen time. She even failed so many screen tests that she once claimed she thought the camera didn't like her face. However, Joan wasn't playing Hollywood's game. She made fun of the fakery of it all in interviews and refused to flirt her way into roles, which didn't win her many friends. Then came Rebecca, in which Alfred Hitchcock cast her in the lead after a number of other actors backed out. Joan brought something different to the role, including nervous energy, genuine vulnerability, and restraint, and it made her an overnight sensation. She was snubbed at the Oscars despite being adored by critics, but it didn't matter because she was finally seen and not as Olivia's sister. By the time Suspicion rolled around, she wasn't just another supporting cast member, she was the star, and Joan didn't hold back when she won the Oscar in 1942. The rivalry was real. The name change was just the beginning. Sibling rivalry goes nuclear. Hollywood has had its share of sibling drama, but none quite like Joan Fontaine and Olivia de Havilland. At first, people didn't even realize they were sisters. However, when Olivia reached out to congratulate her, Joan brushed right past. Their rivalry was about fame, pure and simple, and they were both talented, ambitious, and driven to succeed. They even tried out for the same roles early on. Joan wanted Gone with the Wind, just like Olivia. She didn't get it. Olivia did. That one stung, but Joan didn't say much. Not then. But behind the scenes, the tension was always simmering, and eventually it exploded. It really came to a head in 1941 when Joan got the lead in Hitchcock's Suspicion. Olivia was working on Hold Back the Dawn, and both of them were nominated for Oscars for Best Actress. When Olivia tried to shake hands with Joan to congratulate her on her win, Joan turned and left the stage, citing nerves. The Cold War between them grew over the years, and they stopped going to the same events. At one press function, Joan reportedly told photographers, "I don't have a sister." That line made headlines and permanently shattered their relationship. At another event, they sat at opposite ends of the table and didn't say a word. Some call it a straight-up snub. Joan never really explained it, and Olivia never forgot it. They didn't even talk when their mother died, and even in their later years, when both were in their 90s, they remained apart. Joan's memoir, No Bed of Roses, exacerbated the situation by accusing Olivia of being controlling, jealous, and cruel. In interviews, Olivia retaliated by calling Joan a liar and a dragon lady. No reconciliation, no forgiveness, just silence. What began as a low-key rivalry evolved into one of the most repulsive rivalries in Hollywood history, and the odd thing is that it wasn't staged. Rather, it was genuine, incisive, intimate, and lasted right up until the very end. Off-screen, Joan was not that girl. Behind the scenes, she was prickly, stubborn, and surprisingly blunt, and crew members frequently remarked that she was more sarcastic than sweet. She made her name playing shy, delicate women, soft-spoken types who looked like they might cry if you raised your voice. Her characters in Rebecca and Suspicion fit that mold perfectly. Joan raised tough questions, defied directors' expectations that she would remain silent and obedient, and didn't care who liked her or flirt to advance. When one producer advised that she smile more, she responded, "Why does it help you act better?" She gambled for fun and smoked non-stop. Frequently requested to soften her tone, particularly in interviews, she responded, "I'll speak how I speak," adding that she poked fun of studio executives and told filthy jokes at Hollywood parties. Even the other performers were taken aback. Cary Grant, who co-starred with her in Suspicion, once remarked that she had a quiet steel behind her eyes. Some fans were confused by the contrast between her on-screen persona and her actual personality, expecting her to be delicate and gentle, but directors quickly learned that you couldn't just put her in the background and expect her to play nice. On set, she resisted scripts that felt lazy or roles that made her feel like wallpaper. "I'm not here to be liked," she once stated, adding that she loathed the word nice because it typically means you're forgettable. Her attitude came at a cost, though, as she didn't obtain the same cushy parts as her contemporaries, but Joan didn't care. "I'm here to be remembered," and she was, but not for the reasons Hollywood had in mind. Feuding with Hitchcock, she owed a lot to Alfred Hitchcock. Hitchcock liked actresses he could mold, and Rebecca made her famous. She won an Oscar for Suspicion, but don't be fooled. She didn't exactly enjoy working with him, and she certainly wasn't afraid to say so. When filming began, things changed for Joan, who was new, quiet, and eager for good roles. Hitchcock's directing style was cold and precise, demanding obedience from Joan, who didn't always comply. During Suspicion, Joan resisted him on how her character should be portrayed, as he wanted her to be passive, confused, and almost childlike. Hitchcock reportedly told producers he would never work with her again, but Joan didn't care, telling friends that Hitchcock had a woman problem. She questioned blocking, refused to cry on cue, and didn't like being handled like a puppet, as she put it. They butted heads frequently. "I was blonde," she said, but I wasn't going to be blank. After suspicion ended, the studio re-edited the movie to make Joan's character appear more innocent and Cary Grant's less menacing. Hitchcock detested the change, but Joan refused to reshoot scenes unless her contract was renegotiated. Joan was never on Hitchcock's call sheet again. Years later, when asked if she would ever work with him again, she smirked and replied, "Only if I directed Hollywood Marriages, Fontaine style." Hitchcock went on to other blondes, working with Ingrid Bergman, Grace Kelly, and Tippi Hedren. She had 4 husbands and left each one with her own flair. She made it clear early on that she didn't want someone to complete her. Instead, she wanted someone who wouldn't get in her way. Her first marriage, to actor Brian Hearn in 1939, appeared ideal on paper, but Joan found him boring, claiming he treated her like a chatty little girl. After 4 years, she ended the relationship. She claimed mental cruelty, which translates to boredom. Next came producer William Dozier, with whom she had a daughter, Deborah, but that didn't make things any easier. Joan once remarked that William had a wonderful head for business except when it involved me, and she would correct him and question his choices in meetings. Her third marriage, to Collier Young, the ex-husband of actress Ida Lupino, began quickly and ended even more quickly. Joan filed for divorce by telegram while she was traveling in Hong Kong, saying, "Better than waiting until I got home and forgot," in response to a question about why she did so. They divorced in 1951. To everyone's astonishment, they remained friends. Joan was close to 50 when she married Alfred Wright Jr., a sports writer. She claimed that he was young and adaptable, which made her laugh, but after 5 years, she ended it like the others without regret or reflection. Joan didn't say she was sorry for the way her marriages ended. She believed in love, but not in losing herself. "I have been the only constant in my life," she once remarked. When other celebrities posed for war bond posters, Joan Fontaine chose to do something different, something genuine. Everyone else comes and goes. Her attitude made her difficult to define and uncontrollable. The public didn't know what to make of her when World War II started, but she didn't just put on a uniform for a picture. She drove military vehicles, trained as a nurse's assistant, and visited wounded soldiers in real hospitals, not soundstages. In addition to joining the Hollywood Canteen, Joan also worked with the American Women's Voluntary Services, participating in civil defense drills, learning first aid techniques, and even earning a certification in air raid protocol. One studio head pleaded with her to stop, fearing she would be hurt or damage her reputation as a star, but she disregarded him. Next came Yank magazine, a magazine designed to boost morale among U.S. troops. The troops loved it, but not so much in Middle America. Joan consented to a photo shoot, but it wasn't just ordinary shoot. The images showed her in silky robes with her legs bare and her hair undone. Some conservative outlets criticized her, saying it was. Joan didn't flinch, yet it was unworthy of an Oscar winner to posture like that. She felt that glamour had a place, even in war, especially at that time. Joan also delivered presentations at army posts and toured hospitals, sitting with troops, holding their hands, and listening to their experiences. "If wearing silk helps a soldier get through the day," she remarked, "I'll wear silk." One nurse later said she wasn't simply acting caring. She absolutely was. Even with all this, she in no way stopped operating. Between 1942 and 1945, she filmed multiple movies even as volunteering on the side. The clique did not always cover it. Joan didn't care. "I am not in this for headlines," she said. "I'm in it as it topics." The Inform All memoir bombshell. By way of the overdue 70s, Joan Fontaine had stopped worrying what Hollywood concept of her. So whilst she posted her memoir, No Bed of Roses, she failed to preserve Lower Back. The ebook wasn't gentle or sentimental. It changed into sharp, targeted, and at times brutal. She went immediately for the jugular, the feud with Olivia. It became in there, fully exposed. Joan claimed their mother usually favored Olivia and defined their childhood as tense and aggressive. She recounted the infamous Oscar night, pronouncing Olivia changed into bloodless and never simply glad for her fulfillment. Joan even found out she and Olivia hadn't spoken in many years, now not even after family deaths. The e-book didn't stop with family. Joan wrote about ex-husbands, studio heads, co-stars, and fanatics. A few named, some stored nameless, but sincerely recognizable. One bankruptcy hinted at an affair with a 9AF3F374C588C9DCDD1F10256FA5 director. Some other took aim at an actress she claimed got roles for motives that had nothing to do with expertise. Hollywood wasn't pleased. The press referred to as it too non-public. A few accused her of exaggerating. Joan simply smiled. If it's uncomfortable, she stated, perhaps it is because it's genuine. She also unfolded approximately the darker components of her lifestyles, reputation, fatigue, damaged marriages, and loneliness. She admitted she often felt like a stranger in her personal house. She failed to sugarcoat something. I had repute, no longer peace, she wrote. Critics have been break up. A few praised the honesty, others stated it changed into attention looking for. However, the e-book bought nicely and were given human beings talking. For Joan, that became sufficient. What actually made jaws drop was her tone. She wasn't inquiring for pity. She wasn't bitter. She became amused, sharp-tongued, and thoroughly unapologetic. While a journalist asked if she regretted writing something, she said, simplest the elements I not noted. Level comebacks and electricity plays. While the film roles began drying up in the 60s, Joan Fontaine didn't fade quietly into retirement. She went back to the level, however not as a grateful has been. She returned on her very own phrases. Joan toured throughout the United States and Europe, starring in stage productions of The Lion and Iciness, Personal Lives, and Tea and Sympathy. She wasn't just appearing. She was controlling casting, cloth cabinet, and in a few cases rewriting lines. Directors who did not pay attention to her notes didn't ultimate long. She wasn't interested by being a group participant. She desired results. One well-known famous incident befell at some stage in a production of a Tennessee Williams play. Joan did not just like the script's pacing, so she changed several of her lines for the duration of stage performances. When the playwright's rep complained, she shrugged and stated, then inform him to write it higher. She also demanded top billing constantly. Even though her position wasn't the lead, her name had to seem first. In one production, she threatened to walk out when a co-famous person's call seemed barely larger at the poster. The theater caved. Costume designers had a tough time, too. Joan became unique approximately fabric, suits, and hues. If she didn't like the cloth cabinet, she'd convey in her own. Once she refused to go on stage unless the lighting changed into adjusted to her shade of ivory. It not on time the show through 45 minutes. But she wasn't doing this simply to be hard. Joan believed theater changed into sacred. It changed into in which actual acting happened where there have been no 2D takes. She as soon as stated, film flatters. Level well-known shows. Audiences came for the drama both on and off degree. She nonetheless had celebrity power and ticket income proved it. Critics called her disturbing but magnetic. Theater owners referred to as her a pressure of nature. Overdue existence eccentricity or freedom. As the years rolled on, Joan Fontaine slipped out of the spotlight, but she in no way slipped into normal. In her very last decades, she lived in Carmel with the aid of the sea, California. A ways from the cameras, surrounded by means of puppies, books, and antique film reels. Buddies and friends called her eccentric. Joan referred to as at peace. She spent her days gardening, portrait, and writing letters to enthusiasts. But don't picture a cozy vintage lady in a rocking chair. Joan turned into still sharp, nonetheless snarky, and nevertheless very a great deal herself. She'd host dinner events and assign guests roles from her antique movies. If a person showed up past due or forgot their person, she'd send them domestic. No second chances. Joan additionally had an issue for rules. Her policies. She didn't permit small communicate in her domestic. Visitors had to be invited, no longer simply drop in. She reportedly once turned away a journalist because they wore denims. "This is not a barn," she said, shutting the door. Her dogs had been her actual partners. She talked to them greater than people and gave them names like Scamp, Dancer, and Lily Poems. She said they were higher conversationalists than maximum actors she worked with. She left instructions in her will for the way every canine must be cared for after her passing. She also stored scrapbooks, specified journals, and bins of personal letters, many of which offered blunt takes on antique co-stars, politics, and growing old. One letter to a friend read, "I don't leave out fame. I miss being underestimated." Even at 90, she gave interviews with a sharp tongue. She referred to as modern Hollywood a circus and stated too many actors cannot even speak genuinely. When asked if she'd ever reconcile with Olivia, she responded, "If I wanted peace, I'd take a snooze." The very last word became hers. She died in her sleep on December 15, 2013 at age 96. She left this world the equal manner she lived in it, on her own terms, quietly defiant and a touch bit mysterious. She exceeded away in her Carmel domestic with her puppies nearby and her affairs already in perfect order. No press statements, no deathbed regrets, only a quiet end to a loud legacy. Olivia de Havilland, nonetheless alive on the time, issued a brief, polite statement. There was no signal of a reunion, no mention of reconciliation. The decadesal-long silence between them in no way broke. When Jonesville became released, there was absolute confidence the rift become everlasting. Olivia become completely excluded. Alternatively, Joan left her property to Shut Pals, longtime group of workers, and animal charities. Her handwritten notes have been clean and direct. No drama, just selections. Amongst her non-public objects have been treasures that inform the actual story. Early rejection letters from studios, private telegrams from Alfred Hitchcock, fan mail she in no way threw away, and a replica of her Oscar speech with edits scribbled in pink ink. Additionally discovered was a yellowed observed taped interior her desk drawer. It study, do not agree with praise. Don't fear grievance. Consider your intestine. That unmarried line summed up her complete profession. After her passing, Hollywood tiptoed round her legacy. A few praised her Oscar-triumphing roles, others introduced up the feud. However, fans remembered the complete bundle. Talented, stubborn, fierce, and unforgettable. Joan in no way softened with age. She never attempted to rewrite her story to healthy public flavor. She said what she supposed, did what she wanted, and didn't care who appreciated it. Even in her last interviews, whilst requested how she'd want to be remembered, she responded, "I wouldn't. I lived it. It's enough." No grand finale, no curtain call, just Joan.